Welcome, Pewter Report readers, viewers, and listeners to a brand new edition of the Pewter Report podcast, energized by Celsius, the official energy drink of pewterreport.com. It is a Tuesday edition of the show. A lot of exciting things to get into. We are going to break down the latest Pewter Report mock draft coming from Pewter Report's own Josh Queipo. All 7 rounds, a lot new additions that should excite fans if the Bucs actually do go through with it at the end of April when the draft gets going on. We'll also talk about Todd Bowles and the comments he made today at the annual NFL meeting that took place in Arizona this year. So a lot of exciting stuff on the docket. I'm your host, Matt Matera. Joined with me is the face that runs the place at pewterreport.com. It's SR Scott Reynolds. And Scott, just like how it used to be for a tradition for us when we were on the show together, the Bucs made a signing right as we started the show.
That's right. It just happens. Not that we make it happen, but the podcasting Buccaneer gods bless us with some breaking news. So the Buccaneers have made a huge addition in free agency, signing USF grad Deidrin Sanat, which has to please Josh Queipo, our own resident bull in the house. So.
Yeah, today's all about Josh Queipo. He's not on the show today, unfortunately. He was on the show yesterday, if you want to see his beautiful mug and his backwards hat in honor of Baker Mayfield. But yeah, Josh came out with a 7-round mock draft. I was a big fan of it, partially because when I had my mock draft during the Bucs battle plan, we had a couple players in common, including a first-round pick. So I definitely had no problems with Josh Queipo's 7-round mock draft. But of course, we'll get to that in a little bit.
Yep.
The annual NFL owners meetings going on right now, or this week, we should say. Last year, it was in Boca at the Breakers. This year, it's over on the West Coast in Phoenix, Arizona. But Todd Bowles did get to speak today. And Scott, we'll get your biggest takeaway from it and everything. I personally don't feel like there was any, obviously the Baker Mayfield signing, that was new since Todd Bowles last spoke at the NFL Combine on the last day of April on February 28th. That obviously was new news for us to consume from Todd Bowles, his overall thoughts on him. But everything else in terms of free agency, he talked about Antoine Winfield Jr.
Right.
I don't really feel like we got any type of new information out of it. Like, sure, he loves that Levante David's back. He told us Antoine Winfield Jr. was going to play free safety. They obviously want to be able to still navigate the offseason and free agency, and that's why like Will Golson is still a big option, and Logan Ryan as well. But just want to get your thoughts about what Todd Bowles had to say today.
Yeah, I agree. There was nothing new in terms of breaking news there. I think you asked the question when you and I and Bailey Adams were at the NFL Scouting Combine about Antoine Winfield, and we kind of broke the news that he was going to be moving to safety exclusively. In other words, getting out of the slot and not playing slot cornerback and focusing on free safety. And that's something Todd Bowles kind of reiterated today. It was kind of void of news. I mean, the comments about Baker Mayfield, you wrote a story for Pewter Report. I'm going to publish that here in the chat. That's definitely worth reading. The headline is what he thinks of Baker Mayfield, which is he called him a warrior and a natural leader. And if you remember, back when Todd Bowles was the head coach of the Jets, right, didn't have a chance to get Baker Mayfield. He went number 1 overall to the Cleveland Browns in 2018. But Baker Mayfield was certainly on his radar, and he went out to the Oklahoma Pro Day and got the scouting report firsthand from there. And, I think he's excited about this quarterback competition. And I think maybe the biggest takeaway was, and of course, he got questions from the national media about Tom Brady moving on and all of this. I think he's excited by the challenge that presents itself here, because now it's a different kind of pressure. It's you got to win without Tom Brady. Last year, you had to win with Tom Brady. That comes with its own set of pressures, Matt. But now the onus is on the other Pro Bowl guys on this team. Vita Vea, Devin White, Levante David's been to a Pro Bowl. Shaq Barrett coming back. Ryan Jensen, Tristan Wirfs, Mike Evans, Chris Godwin. There's still plenty of good players in this team. That's a message Todd Bowles wanted to convey.
100%. I agree. I think the biggest takeaway out of anything that Todd Bowles said, but specifically when talking about Baker Mayfield, is that he really wanted to emphasize, yes, the competition and the fact that we understand Tom Brady is not there anymore. He's the greatest quarterback of all time. There's no replacing Tom Brady, but that doesn't mean that this team can't be competitive. It's going to look different. It obviously, he pointed out that, there was a billion reporters when, Brady was in town, or anytime Tom Brady did anything. There's not going to be a billion reporters. There's still going to be the local media, including ourselves there throughout the whole season. So, yeah, he really wanted to harp on that this team can still be competitive without Tom Brady, and everything that you said about competition and just relying on everyone else around you. I'll read a couple of quotes of what Todd Bowles had to say in regards to Baker. He said, "It gives us competition. It gives us a warrior. It gives us a guy that's gone to the playoffs before." Again, Baker Mayfield, the only person in the NFC South at quarterback that has won a playoff game. At least you have a proven guy, someone to compete with Kyle Trask. That'll make sure that we haven't taken dips too low. I think when you lose the greatest quarterback of all time, everybody just assumes you're going to be bad. At least that's the narrative. But it takes a team to win a Super Bowl, and it also takes a team to win ball games. Later on, he said that Baker Mayfield brings juice to the competition, which I thought was, gives us some competitive juice to go along with Kyle Trask. And then, the big thing at the end that he was talking about, and whoever wins the quarterback job, this is his message to the starting quarterback. You don't need to be the guy. You need to rely on the 10 guys around you. We're not looking for a guy to come in there and be Superman. We have great players. You have Mike Evans. You have Chris Godwin. You have Rashad White. You have Tristan Wirfs. You have Ryan Jensen. You have Cade Otton. I like that he went out to mention Cade Otton, because you always hear Mike Evans and Chris Godwin, but you don't hear Cade Otton as much.
That's right.
And to finish it off, he says, you have guys that you can play with, and you have pieces. You don't have to be the guy. You just really need to drive the car. And that's what we've been talking about. It's just keeping the ship we'll keep it pirate themed because it's the Bucs.
Sure.
You got to keep the ship afloat. And I think that's the number one challenge for the quarterbacks this year. And it's a big opportunity, obviously, for Baker and Kyle Trask, but for Todd Bowles as well.
Yeah, I think you're exactly right, Matt. And the one thing, too, that's worth mentioning about Bowles' comments, and this is, it kind of goes back to, and listen, we know we did a poll about who we thought would win the quarterback position on Pewter Report Twitter feed, and 55% said Baker Mayfield, 45% said Kyle Trask. The one thing that could work in Kyle Trask is listening and following directions. Don't turn the ball over. Don't be Superman, right? Go out there, distribute the ball, be the point guard. And if Kyle Trask can do this, and he's probably a little bit less risk averse, or I should say maybe that's more risk adverse. No, he's less. He's less risk adverse. He's less. Baker Mayfield in his career, statistically speaking, has been more risk adverse. That was evident in 2019, also 2021, 2020. He really had things under control from an interception standpoint and produced the touchdowns that the team wanted him to produce in Cleveland. And so I think that's what it's going to come down to. It's the first rule of football is, don't beat yourself, right? And if you can accomplish that, make enough plays to win the game, but more importantly, don't lose the game, right? Don't help the other team out. And I really believe it's going to come down to not who's the biggest playmaker in training camp, but who avoids turnovers and who doesn't beat the Buccaneers. We've heard Bruce Arians say it back in 2019, Bucs are beating Bucs. We even heard Todd Bowles say that last year. We got to stop beating ourselves. Our worst enemy is ourselves. The Bucs beat the Bucs, etc. So for those out there that want to crown Baker Mayfield and that are anti-Kyle Trask, is not over yet because it hadn't started. And for those of you that are, thinking Kyle Trask is getting a raw deal and, Pewter Report and everybody else is already saying Baker Mayfield has the job. No, he's the leader in the clubhouse because of his experience. But it's going to come.
Said it perfectly.
That's right. Yeah. But it's going to come down to which quarterback doesn't beat the Bucs, which quarterback helps beat the other team.
Because you know what, Scott? At the beginning of training camp, you're not going to win the job. But if Baker goes out there and the first day says, screw it, I'm Baker Mayfield, they brought me in here. I'm the guy. And he throws 4 interceptions in his first training camp practice. Kyle Trask doesn't really have to wow anybody. He doesn't
That's
have
right.
to chuck it down the field. You could kind of let Baker self-implode, and Kyle Trask might win the job that way. Now, if Baker is slinging it and Kyle's still a little more protective, but Baker isn't turning the ball over that much, then yeah, absolutely. The leader in the clubhouse would be Baker Mayfield. But that hold on to the ball. You can't win the job within the first week, but you can certainly maybe not 100% lose it, but put yourself behind the starter quickly into training camp. So that's definitely something to pay attention to.
Well, we know how Felix feels about this. Kyle Trask is trash, and no way he beats out Baker. And if you're listening to what Matt's saying, what I'm saying, I'm telling you right now, it's not about beating out Baker Mayfield, right? It's about Baker Mayfield losing the job, because that can happen. If he becomes a turnover machine, Todd Bowles has seen it firsthand with Jameis Winston, and he's seen both ends of the spectrum, right? What happens when a quarterback throws 30 interceptions and 7 pick sixes? You're 7-9. You're not in the playoffs. And what happens when a quarterback has a 3-1 or 4-1 touchdown interception ratio like Tom Brady? You win Super Bowls. So Todd Bowles has seen it. He's from his days with the Jets. He knows the quarterback position will get you beat. Yeah. So don't turn the ball over. Don't be your own worst enemy. And that's what gives Kyle Trask a legitimate shot in this thing.
Absolutely. I like this comment from Kieran. He says, if Trask doesn't win the job, then he risks being a QB2 for the rest of his career. I definitely think there's something to it, because if he doesn't win the job this year, and Baker's only on a 1-year deal, we don't know how the season's going to pan out. But if Baker wins the job, but let's just say hypothetically isn't good enough to be re-signed next year, then the Bucs are going into a season where you still have Kyle Trask under contract for 1 more season, but he's been in the league for 3-4 years and hasn't been a starter yet. The Bucs are going to be moving on from Kyle Trask. So this is we talked about JTS yesterday. Is it a make or break? Not 100%. It is a make or break season for Kyle Trask. If he doesn't become the starter this year, he may never become the starter. Now, crazy things happen. People get injured. New opportunities hold up. But you can't tell me that the Bucs still believe in Kyle Trask. I don't care what Todd Bowles says to everybody about his work ethic, and he's working behind the scenes. He doesn't get a lot of reps when Tom Brady's going. Jason Light has spoke very highly about Kyle Trask, and I understand, because that's his quarterback draft pick. And if a lot of times you are judged on your quarterback draft picks, and in that department hasn't turned out too well for Jason Light, but then he'll tell everybody else, including myself, look at my Super Bowl ring. So.
Yeah, you're right. I'm gonna put a little asterisk on what you just said, because there's a lot of merit to it. But here's the one thing, and honestly, didn't really even consider this myself until just now. Maybe you have or you haven't, Matt. But here's the thing: what happens if this quarterback-friendly offense that Dave Canales installs is just a big hit? And what if both of these quarterbacks really show out? And by that, what I mean is what if Baker Mayfield throws for 5 touchdowns and 1 interception in the preseason? And what if Kyle Trask throws for 4 touchdowns and 2 interceptions, right, in the preseason? I mean, a 2-to-1 interception ratio for a young quarterback. And, he's probably going to be working with some of the backups in this job. I'm sure that out of the 3 preseason games, my guess is they'll probably give one guy gets the starters one game, and then he'll get the backups the next. But what if the Buccaneers have 2 really good quarterbacks here, right? It could be the opposite. They both might stink. But what if both of them are good? So I would say, with the caveat there, if Kyle Trask shows that he has some potential and promise, it's just that, let's say he has a B or B+ training camp in preseason.
Yeah.
And what if Baker Mayfield has an A-, right? I mean,
you know what? I'll admit, I went in thinking one quarterback's going to be good, the other one's going to be bad, and that's who's going to win the competition.
Right.
You're absolutely right. It could be it's a coin flip. It really could be a coin flip. And you know what? I guarantee you, before that first preseason game, Todd Bowles is going to say something along the lines of, we're going with Baker for the first game. That does not mean that he's going to be the starter. And he'll be very wishy-washy about how they're going to play out the reps for the quarterbacks in all of the preseason games. It will be very exciting to see. And yeah, that's a good point. Both could actually end up doing pretty well. Then what do you do from there? If Baker plays that well, do you give him a big contract? Or Kyle Trask, you have him still under that rookie year for another season. That's a long way away.
It is.
Now, so don't
And
have
listen,
to worry about that.
if you think I'm being too optimistic, I could easily have said, "What if they both suck?" Right? Like, so I'm just trying to keep it a little positive and optimistic in the off season because listen, there are four things that could happen. Right? They both suck. They're both good. Baker's better than Trask, or Trask is better than Baker. One of those four things is going to happen. It's only going to be one of those four things.
Or they draft the quarterback in the 7th round, and he surprises everyone.
Yeah, he's the next Skylar Thompson who lights it up in the preseason and leads the league in preseason passing.
And then has to, play by default because everyone else gets injured. Yeah,
exactly. Or the next Brock Purdy who does the same thing and then ends up being, the de facto starter this year outside of his elbow injury.
Yeah, hopefully that doesn't get to that point because it probably doesn't bode well for the Bucs. The last thing, real quick, I'll say about Todd Bowles. Scott has a story coming out on it later, so I'm not going to comment on it too much. But I like what he had to say about Rachaad White, his expectations for him this season. Hold on to the damn football,
That's
Rachaad White. That's essentially where I'll leave it at that because we have a super chat that we need to get to. Shout out to the Callum Show for this $4.99 super chat. I want to say that's the euro, but I'm not 100% sure. Either way,
might be the pounds. I think it's pounds.
Yeah,
over there. Yeah, I think
I'm still confused about the whole Brexit thing. I don't know who's what and whatever. But next time I travel there, I'll figure it out. Yeah.
Right.
Anyway, thank you, Callum Show. They say I won a lot of money the past few years with your Bucs best bets because Scott is spot on, especially with the JTS pick. Looking forward to your majority consensus UK Buck. Well, Scott, I will say because. You're humble and you won't come out and say it, but you are the best in the game when it comes to predictions as far as position-wise, who the Bucs are going to take. You nailed Logan Hall last season. I'm trying to think if you got someone else, but year in and year out, you get so many right. And I'm glad that our fellow Pewter Report readers and listeners and viewers can benefit off of your great predictions.
Last year was a good year. We had Logan Hall in there
White,
as it's the Bucs best bet. We had Hall and we had Rachaad White in our mock draft. Then we had Cade Otton as a Bucs best bet at tight end, if my memory serves me correctly. So kind of got three right there. I think you can give us that. And then JTS and Kyle Trask, we had them both back-to-back in the mock draft and also Bucs best bets. Listen, if we get one, honestly, it's hard.
This year especially with, and obviously free agent cleaned a couple of things up, which makes it, I don't necessarily know easier, but the radar is a little bit easier to pinpoint, I would say. But this year, much tougher than most.
Sure.
Do they go defensive, nickel corner? Do they go edge rusher? There's so many different options.
Well, and here's what makes it hard, right? Because you could sit there and say offensive tackle in 2020. And by the way, 2020 was a year we didn't get any Bucs best bets or mock draft picks right. So not perfect by any means. Our track record at Pewter Report does speak for itself. We do nail some of these, certainly more than any other enterprise covering the Bucs and their drafts. But even in 2020, Matt, I mean, who knew that Tristan Wirfs was going to be out of the four tackles that year, the one to fall to Tampa Bay. Tampa Bay moved up one spot to get Wirfs from 13 to 12.
Yeah.
But he was the best one.
I know.
You know what I mean?
A lot of us had him first on our board in terms of offensive tackles. And you know what? The one year you didn't get a Bucs best bet, they won the Super Bowl. So there's a silver lining for.
So hopefully it won't get any this year, and they'll surprise the Bucs and shock the world. So,
true underdog story for sure. Shout out Mark Fisher, a consistent contributor to Pewter Report. That. Says, love Pewter Report. I don't know college prospects. That's okay. Not everyone's into the draft as much as they are the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. But he says, I don't know college prospects well, but I'm still in the know. You guys have sold me on safety Brian Branch being the first pick. Yeah, he definitely is definitely a viable option. And Felix also said he got Vita, meaning that you nailed the pick with Vita Vea.
I did, yeah. And there's been a lot, more than I can even remember. And I have a secret that once I retire, I'll tell everybody about how I nail these. But I can't do it right now because it's still working.
You have to tell it on the show, though, so we can at least.
I will, I'll come out of retirement and I'll do a whole podcast on it. I've had people within the Buccaneers organization because listen, I have NFL. I'm just going to say people. I'm not going to tell you whether they're front office or coaches or whatever. Email me and or text me and say, I just read your latest mock draft or I read your Bucs best bets. thanks for telling me who the Buccaneers want, So listen, if the Bucs have to make some trades because other teams are savvy to what we know that they're going to do, then that's kind of on them. Our job is to provide the best draft information for you, the Buccaneer fans. And I've had with multiple general managers, so I'm not going to just pin one person down, with multiple, probably I'm going to say the last 3 text messages on draft days saying, hey, these are the remaining Bucs best bets. Can you draft one of these to make us look good? Right. And sometimes they have. And then I even got a text from someone saying, I almost didn't pick him because I don't want to hear you gloat about it, which is funny. But of course, they're going to make the best decision for the team. They don't give a shit what Pewter Report thinks. I mean, they do, but they don't.
Hey, I mean,
it's a fun exercise to do. It's just
absolutely fun. It's high praise, and it's awesome that you kind of have this influence in terms of like your finger is on the pulse, and
it better be, because I don't know.
It's a great reporter, great source.
I don't know shit about anything else. Buccaneers,
there is something else a lot about, and that is the greatness of Celsius Energy Drinks, the official sponsor of the Pewter Report podcast. You got to check out all the flavors that they got. A couple of the new ones. The Fantasy Vibe, which has a marshmallow flavor to it. I mean,
so good.
It tastes like a creamsicle. Bucs fans love creamsicle. You got the sparkling lemon lime as well. I've said this before. I'll say it again. It has quickly moved into my top 5 of favorite Celsius energy drinks. Can't forget about the Arctic Peach and Tropical Vibes either, or all the other flavors they have, like the sparkling watermelon, sparkling orange, sparkling wild berry, Fuji apple pear, peach mango. Total awesome. Great different flavors. The strawberry lemonade I've been on a lot as well lately. If you need to know where to get a Celsius energy drink, go to the store locator at Celsius.com, punch in your address, and it will direct you to the exact spot, the closest location where you can find one. We did it when we were in Indianapolis for the NFL Combine, found one right away. So check out your local 7-Eleven, Walmart, Target, or your bodega. As I like to say, to check it out there. And if you want to start getting Celsius in bulk, which I would recommend getting the variety pack, because variety is the spice of life. You heard me talk about all the great flavors that they have over at Celsius. Do the subscribe and save over at Amazon. Have it sent to your house or apartment every week, month, quarterly, yearly, whenever you want. Just make sure you're drinking Celsius energy drinks, the official sponsor of the Pewter Report podcast. So shout out to Celsius for all their delicious flavors and for sponsoring this show. All right, Scott, it is mock draft. I clapped to the side because I was going to hit my microphone if I did it that way.
Yep.
Let's get into Josh Queipo's mock draft. We are dubbing it Pewter Report's mock draft 4.0. This is technically the second from Josh Queipo, if you include his Bucs battle plan mock draft.
And I want to be clear. This is not just Josh's. This is Pewter Report's mock draft, right? This is like our official one that we do. Josh and I collaborated on this, and I'll say this.
All right, well, there you go.
Well, I'm not saying it for me. I'm just saying, like, I'm going to give him a ton of credit because usually I've done these for like the past 20 some years. So Josh is like, hey, I want to take a stab at a mock draft. We collaborated on it. He wrote the whole thing. So I'm just very proud of him. I think it was very cool for him to say, hey, I know you usually do this. I want to take a stab at it. The great thing is he showed me his list. I had my list. We actually had the top 3 guys, 1, 2, and 3. We saw it exactly the same way. And then we also had, I want to say 2 or 3 other names on the list. And I think I added one and he added. It was a great collaborative effort, but Josh did a tremendous job on this. Appreciate him doing it because it takes a lot of mental energy to like plan and plot. Okay, now you pick this guy, but there's always a position or 2 that's going to be left out, right?
Yeah, and I had that as well. You're like, oh damn, I forgot about like another defensive tackle to like add into the mix or whatever it is. So shout out to you guys for collaborating on this.
I will say this too, Matt. You said it at the top. There was always some breaking news, or almost always when we're on together. Not only did the Buccaneers re-sign Deidrin Sanat, the backup defensive tackle, they also signed a kicker today. They signed Chase McLaughlin from the Indianapolis Colts. And McLaughlin came into the league, undrafted free agent out of Illinois. He's 26 years old. and bounced around a lot in 2019. He was on 3 different teams: the Colts, the Chargers, I believe San Francisco was one of those. And then in 2020, split time between Jacksonville and the Jets. So he's bounced around quite a bit. He's got a 78.8% field goal percentage throughout his career, 97.8% on the extra points. In 2021, he was with Cleveland and made 3 of 4 kicks. I take that back. No, 21 of 15. I was looking at his ranges there. So he does have a bigger leg. This is a guy that Todd Bowles, he said that today. He wants a kicker that has a bigger leg because it could be more of a weapon in a place like Tampa Bay that when you've seen it, Matt, when the breeze is blowing right, one particular way, whether it's the north or the south, you can get some extra oomph there. And I think that's what this guy does. He is, let's see, from 50 and beyond, he is 11 of 14. That's 83.3%. So that's a hell of a completion. I'm sorry, of a kick conversion percentage.
Yeah, completion. Yeah.
So he was 9 of 12 from beyond 50 yards in Indy. Granted, some of those were in a dome, but even in Cleveland, he was 4 of 4, and that's the last 2 years. So he's got a big leg for a guy that's not really big. He's only 6 foot, 180 pounds. But so now that the Bucs have 2 kickers, Jake Verity, who was already on the roster, and now Chase McLaughlin.
Yeah, and I think it wouldn't even shock me if they drafted one late in the 7th round or the 6th round, like in this latest mock draft. Yep. This by no means that McLaughlin has the job. It's going to be a kicker competition. Yeah. Now, it's not the number 1 position competition in training camp for the Bucs. Baker Mayfield and Kyle Trask have that honor of the most compelling competition. But we will be paying attention in training camp for every single kick that these kickers attempt during training camp. And it will go throughout the whole preseason.
And Matt, it's just as important to find a good kicker as it is to find a quarterback, as crazy as that sounds. And the reason why is your kicker's responsible for more points than anybody. Right? When it comes to extra points,
Ryan Suckup
field
set
goals,
the record a couple of seasons ago for that. And I think it's even more important this year. I know we're high on Dave Canales, the offensive coordinator. I know we're excited about what Baker or Kyle Trask can bring. But in years past with Tom Brady, it was like, okay, even if they even think about settling for a 45-yard field goal, they'll probably just go for it. They cannot anything less than getting into the red zone was a disappointment for the Tom Brady-led Bucs offense, even last year when they struggled. This year, a lot of times you're going to be like, all right, they're in field goal range. They can hit this 51-yarder. So they need every single yard they can get from their kicker, which is why it's super important that they got a guy with a bigger leg. And obviously for Ryan Suckup, the contract numbers really came into play, I think, more than anything else, why he's not on the team this season. But it'll be fun to see. Kicker's very important. It's been a position that's haunted the Bucs in the past. They found it with Ryan Suckup, and we'll see if the good times can roll at kicker even without Suckup in the mix, or if you'll start this drama all over again with the kicker.
Right. Exactly. Well, let's get to it, Matt. I'm going to give you some credit because this is a player that you liked and you really kind of recognized from the start. As a defensive guy, I always kind of focus on defense. And I'm not saying that Brian Branch can't be or won't be the first overall pick, but I've actually kind of fallen in love with the safety I like even better. I'm not saying Branch is this guy's better than Branch, but he just is kind of a different fit. But it just seems to me that this team needs an offensive tackle. And I like Anton Harrison a lot out of Oklahoma. But the more and more tape I watch on Darnell Wright, the right tackle from Tennessee, and he's got experience playing the left side too, which I think you like there. Because now essentially, Matt, you've got 2 players. And this is the guy we think will be there and could be that first pick for the Bucs at number 19. Darnell Wright and Tristan Wirfs have experience on both sides in college, playing left and right. I think Wright is a better right tackle, and I think Wirfs has better athleticism to be able to play the left side and star there. So what you have here is you've got a guy in Darnell Wright that maybe you try out at the rookie minicamp at left tackle, see his footwork, and see, well, maybe this guy could be left. Maybe we'll stick Tristan on the right. No harm, no foul in trying that kind of stuff in the offseason. But big guy, 6'5", 333 pounds, incredible pass protector, probably needs some more work in the run game, but has the size and the athleticism to get the job done. You liked him, and you really pointed him out at the Senior Bowl where I thought he had a pretty good showing.
Yeah, he's just a monster of a human being. And I think it's a lot tougher for offensive tackles, but offensive linemen in the draft coming into the NFL, I feel like they're typically better as a run blocker and struggle like one-on-one pass rushing, especially, if you come to like the NFC South and you have to deal with some of the edge rushers like Cam Jordan. I guess previously, Cam Jordan's still on the team, but like dealing with Cam Jordan, stuff like that, it's tough for a rookie offensive tackle. So I love the fact that Darnell Wright already has the traits to be a really good pass blocking offensive tackle right out of the gate. He's able to mirror guys.
Well said.
He's able to move left and right, even on one side, like mirror. They always talk about mirroring, and that's so important for Darnell Wright. And his arms are so long, and he's so strong that once he gets involved with you, once he gets his paws on you, you are done. You're not getting by him. That's why I thought he was so great at the Senior Bowl. I like that, and I get the concern that he's not as crazy mobile as some other guys, but he's still tested pretty well at the combine overall. But most important to me, the fact that he moved around on both sides, it gives the Bucs options, like you talked about. Maybe OTAs plays a little bit left tackle. Maybe he feels comfortable at left tackle, or he's good at right tackle. Tristan starts at left tackle, but then 2 weeks in the training camp, he's like, you know what? It's just not right for me. It's not. I tried it. I gave him my best shot. It's not working out. Let's move Tristan Wirfs back to the right side. You can do that and move Darnell Wright to the left side. I'm not saying the Bucs are going to do that, but it's an option. And number one for me overall, going up against the best competition, he held his own. Going up against Georgia, did very well. Playing against Will Anderson in Alabama.
Shut Will Anderson down.
Shut him down.
B.J. Ojulari at LSU, right? He's battle-tested.
That's the next man I was about to say.
Yeah.
The tape tells it all. Sometimes I don't care if an offensive lineman doesn't have a great 40-yard dash time. Who cares? The only time an offensive lineman's going to be 40 yards down the field is if they hit a home run running play for 75 yards.
So and he's going down there to celebrate. Exactly. Yeah.
Exactly. So I just think you combine all of those factors, and he's not perfect by any means, but you combine all of those factors, and there's a lot to be excited about with Darnell Wright. I mean, a couple of weeks ago, he was like maybe a fringe first rounder, and now he's like getting his way almost out of the Bucs range, but in the opposite direction of being like a top 15 pick.
I think its beauty is in the eye of the beholder when it comes to these offensive tackles. We've seen it before, Matt. We saw it in 2020.
Yeah.
Right. And I don't believe the Bucs are going to have any chance on getting Peter Skronsky. Right. I don't even consider him an option because I think he is probably a top 10, top 12 guy. Then you have Paris Johnson from Ohio State. He would be a fantastic fit in Tampa, the junior, 6'6", 313. He's a perfect fit for this wide zone run scheme. He's a great pass protector. I think he is the second best prospect. Then it's kind of muddled. It's, again, beauties in the eye of the beholder. Anton Harrison from Oklahoma, Broderick Jones from Georgia, who's a redshirt sophomore, and then Darnell Wright, probably the next grouping. And then you've got DeJuan Jones, the right tackle from Ohio State, probably a second rounder. I would not pick him in the first round. Matthew Bergeron after him. So there's kind of like a grouping right there, and we just think that Darnell Wright might have the best possibility of being there. A couple of quick things on Wright before we move on to our second round pick. He played 554 snaps as a part-time starter as a sophomore in 2020 at right tackle. Then he moves to left tackle exclusively, 920 snaps there at left tackle. Gave up 3 sacks, just not bad in the SEC. Only 1 quarterback hit, 13 pressures. Then he moves back to the right side last year. 0 sacks allowed, only 2 hits in 6 hurries, playing 892 snaps at right tackle. So if the Bucs came away with this guy, they're going to be a better team for it, for sure, because of the position flexibility. And then you just, wherever they play, you've got 2 really good guys and Wright and Wirfs.
Yeah, it's tough to find a hole, whether it's, the stats you just brought up, his versatility moving from side to side, or the competition he went with. I would love this pick if the Bucs took Darnell Wright. Now, moving to their second round pick, Pewter Report has going with an edge rusher. They're taking outside linebacker out of Auburn, Derek Hall. He's a senior that's 6'3", weighs 254 pounds. Over the past couple seasons, he had 21 tackles, 4 tackles for loss, 4 sacks, and a forced fumble in 2020. The following season, 52 tackles, 12.5 tackles for loss, 9 sacks, and 2 forced fumbles. And then last season in 2022, 60 tackles, 11.5 tackles for loss, 6.5 sacks, 2 forced fumbles, a fumble return, and an interception. The write-up on him, I guess if you want to say, he's a bit undersized, but he's got a lot of great speed. And again, another like physical specimen as an edge rusher.
He really is. He's not allergic to the weight room. This guy is rocked up. We saw that at the Senior Bowl. And very serious-minded guy. He's a team captain, loves football. His DNA just screams Buccaneers, right? Auburn defender, you think. KJ Britt, Jamel Dean, Carlton Davis, battle-tested in the SEC, going up against the likes of Georgia, Tennessee, Auburn, Alabama, et cetera. LSU, he is a player that incredibly fast, runs in the 4.5s, checks all the boxes athletically you want. He is, I believe, an up-and-comer when it comes to pass rush. I think he's not topped out. He's nowhere near his ceiling. He had 9 sacks as a junior, 6.5 last year, but had more quarterback hits. Plus, he had an interception, a couple forced fumbles. He's got 5 forced fumbles in his career. And Tampa Bay, I think, Matt, really needs to take advantage of this edge rushing class. If they don't do it in the first round, and if they're going to go first round, it's probably going to be Felix Anudike-Uzomah or Will McDonald from Kansas State and Iowa State, respectively. Neither one of those guys is going to be there in the second round when Tampa Bay picks. That's why a player like Derek Hall makes a lot of sense.
That's why we talked a lot about with Anudike-Uzomah, just the fact that he was able to get after the football. So you mentioned all the forced fumbles, and we talked a lot on yesterday's show, specifically about corners from Auburn, about how they need to take the ball away more. But
Jamel Dean and Carlton Davis.
If you can cut into those turnovers with the forced fumbles, Derek Hall could be a good option for that. You mentioned the interception. A lot of these outside linebackers, they're more edge rushers, and depending on what team they go to, they get converted to an outside linebacker, and you have to play in a little bit coverage.
You got to drop some,
Yeah, you have to drop some. Like, even for Joe Tryon-Shoyinka, I think he did that a little bit at Washington, but then he hadn't played for a year. So you're talking about a guy that hasn't played in a year, and now you have to drop back in coverage. And we all remember when JPP had 2 interceptions, and the Bucs aren't drafting an edge rusher in the second round so he can rack up the interceptions. But the versatility, and the other thing about being a captain, the Bucs love drafting team captains. I think that's really important with keeping a close-knit locker room, or in recent years, a locker room that can go through a bunch of crap and get through it on the other side and still overall have a successful team. So you love the strength and the physicality mixed with the speed. I don't think this is a case about a couple other defenders or previous players we've seen in the NFL where, built like Tarzan, play like Jane. I don't necessarily think
this guy backs it up. The tape backs it up.
Backs it up. And consistency with the number of sacks. I know there was a drop from 9.5 to 6.5 or 6.
Yeah.
But overall, there's that consistency. It wasn't like a crazy, oh my God, what happened type of drop off. And it completely fills a need. JTS, we talked a lot about him on yesterday's show.
Shaq Barrett now too, age 30, right?
And,
be 31
Shaq
in
Barrett
November.
Getting up there in age, the injury more than anything else concerns me. Anthony Nelson back. You add something else into the mix, and may the best man win.
Yeah. Hey, listen, for 3 weeks, the Buccaneers were crossing their fingers. They were hoping and praying that nothing would happen to JTS and Anthony Nelson, because
unbelievable. They just played every single snap.
Yeah, but they did. Talk about some young Bucks out there, some Iron Man. I mean, that's what they were. You didn't have Shaq Barrett. You didn't have obviously Cam Gill got hurt in training camp. Didn't have Carl Nassib, right? So they were down to 2 guys. And the contingency plan was Levante David or Devin White playing some edge rusher, or lining up Pat O'Connor out there. So they didn't have to do that because these guys played that. But that was a position last year that really suffered some injuries. And without Shaq Barrett, only disappointing year, only 3 sacks in half a season to begin with. We have a question here from Long Lost Leisure. What about linebacker Owen Papo from Auburn on day 3? I would love that pick because I don't think KJ Britt is fast enough to be a down in, down out starter in the NFL. Good on special teams, but Papo was the fastest linebacker at the combine, and the dude's got some jets, a really weird running style. He's got a weird gait to his running style, but Jason cannot quit Auburn Tigers.
Yeah.
So
odds are it's going to be an Auburn
player.
Yeah, odds are it's going to be an Auburn player or a Washington player or Central Michigan. Those seem to be the three schools that he loves.
And maybe Minnesota. Maybe Minnesota.
Yeah, Minnesota as well. I liked him too. And I think eventually the Bucs, either this draft or next draft or through next year's free agency, they're going to have to address the depth at inside linebacker. But we can talk about that for another episode because we still have to get to more picks. The third round pick from Pewter Report, Sidney Brown. This is another guy that was in my mock draft that I'm a really big fan of. About 5'10" in height, if I'm not mistaken, but he is a physical. He's the hammer that takes it to the nail. He flies around all over the field. He can lay a cold shoulder, but not get too crazy with like penalties and things of that nature. Very athletic, excellent compliment to Antoine Winfield Jr. In that sense. Was able to take the ball away. If you watch his highlight reel, he has some crazy like interceptions and just athletic plays going from one side of the field to the other or running 20 yards up from the safety position. I think he's a really exciting player, pretty fast as well, and smart football player. It said he looks up to Antoine Winfield Jr., obviously playing in the Big Ten together. Another guy, I actually had him going in the second round, but
you know what? I was just getting ready to say that, Matt. This is one of those things where this is not our final mock. We'll probably do, two more. The last one will be would be the week before the draft, the week of the draft, I should say. It might be a thing where, and we had Joe Tryon-Shoyinka in the second round in one of our previous mocks. This guy might be the second round pick. And they might lose a guy like Derek Hall. They might have to get a guy like Isaiah McGuire from Missouri, edge rusher in the third round, if they want to go that route. But yeah, this guy's really good, and we've seen Jason Light now draft Justin Evans in the second round out of Texas A&M. We saw them draft Winfield in the second round out of Minnesota in 2020. And let's not forget, the Bucs were strongly considering Lewis Cine from Georgia. With their first pick. They traded down out of the first round. They traded with Jacksonville at the top of the second round. And with the last pick of the first round, Minnesota trades up to get Lewis Cine. So who knows? The Bucs could have drafted Lewis Cine over Logan Hall with their first pick had he been there. But the Vikings took care of that option. But Cine was right there in consideration. The safety position, critically important to Todd Bowles' defense. He was a safety, Matt. And more importantly, there's only two on the roster. You got Antoine Winfield and Nolan Turner. So for anybody out there that says, oh, come on now, don't get carried away, it's just a safety. This is your other starting safety right now, right? The former undrafted free agent out of Clemson who spent most of the year in the practice squad. No disrespect, Nolan Turner. You might end up becoming a hell of a good player, but you're not ready to start now opposite Antoine Winfield.
Yeah, you still have to start adding safeties, and this is another guy that can play the slot as well. And I know I talked a lot about his physicality and what he can do, but in coverage, Scott, 7 pass breakups last season, 6 interceptions, also had a sack, and his forced fumble. I don't remember if it was this season or the prior season. He had a forced fumble on special teams as well as a gunner. So this is a guy that
led to a touchdown.
That led to a touchdown on the play. It was a very cool play.
It was against Virginia. It was right. The guy catches the ball around the 10-yard line.
Well, probably should have fair caught it. Or actually, Virginia Tech is Beamer ball.
Right. But the thing is, he's got a nose for the end zone. He's got 2 pick sixes. He destroyed Michigan in a game, but he had 2 pick sixes in his career, and then had a scoop and score in another game, and 4 forced fumbles. He's just around the ball. 10 interceptions. He had 6 last year. So when I said that there's a guy that makes me kind of almost like, okay, fine, maybe not Brian Branch as the number 1 overall safety. I don't think this guy's going to be the first safety off the board, but I like him the best out of all the safeties that I've watched so far. And you're right, he's a perfect fit for the Bucs. The interesting thing is a lot of those interceptions came when he was playing cover 2, when he was playing deep safety. He's better and best in the box, stuffing the run and playing closer to the line of scrimmage because he is that hammer that you talked about, Matt. But, man, this guy can do it all. We know Todd Bowles likes to flip-flop his safeties, especially when they were playing cover 3, right, where you've got that single high safety. And, gosh, to have 2 guys that can be interchangeable in Winfield and Brown would just be perfect for Tampa Bay.
I honestly, you do like player comparisons and stuff with these prospects.
Kind of similar, aren't they?
Well, kind of similar, but I was thinking like in terms of historic like NFL players, I was getting Troy Polamalu.
Yes,
yes. I was getting Troy Polamalu.
Maybe it's the hair too.
Yeah, maybe a little bit, but just flying around, making plays in so many different directions. There was, I don't know, that's the first vibe I got. I'm sure John Ledyard might be like, are you crazy? Blah, blah, blah. There's so many specifics on why they're not similar, but I don't know. That's just like the original thought I got. Yeah.
No, I'm with you. There was a couple plays too where I was thinking that, Matt. I really was. So we're seeing the same things on tape. Richie P with a great observation here, and I'm going to clear this up. Does that 5'10" not worry you? How about Antonio Johnson in the second round? That guy eats running backs for dinner. So here's the thing: Todd Bowles actually prefers smaller safeties. 5'10" is his ideal, threshold, right? You look at Jordan Whitehead, 5'10", Winfield, who's 5'9", Mike Evans, 5'10". That's what he prefers. Even though Todd Bowles is like 6'2" himself and played safety as a bigger guy, he prefers guys that are more fluid.
Safety.
Yeah, right, exactly. But it's a different game now than it was then. Now you've got to be more fluid. You've got to be quicker, faster, and still be physical to go up against the slots. And we saw Antoine Winfield go up and moss Michael Pittman Jr., who was 6'3", 6'4". So as long as you have the ups, as long as you have the good vertical and you can do that and you're a good athlete, then the size component becomes a little bit less relevant. But a lot of times it's just to be a better tackler, you've got to get low, wrap guys up. And some of these bigger safeties, the 6'2", 6'3", monster guys, the Cam Chancellors, there's just not a lot of big successful safeties out there. And I know the Bucs have, they had Keanu O'Neal, who was 6'2". They have Nolan Turner, who's, I believe, 6'1". So I'm not saying that Todd Bowles automatically crosses them off the list, but he specifically said he prefers guys that are in that 5'10" range.
I think the confusion is the Bucs like their corners tall and lanky with length. They like their safeties a little bit smaller. And Scotty Miller is a outside wide receiver. He is not a slot receiver. Those are the three biggest misconceptions with the Buccaneers. We got to come up with an acronym like Greenland is full of ice and Iceland is very nice. They like their corners tall and lanky. They like their safeties a little bit smaller.
Short and stanky. Right.
Yeah.
There you go. Al Bundy, Jamie Robinson from Florida State is another guy that really has kind of been that mix too. Yeah. Big fan of his as well. So let's move on here.
Yes.
Go ahead. Let's read this here.
Creo Southpaw said, a few weeks ago on this podcast, Pewter Report was saying Brian Branch is out of our reach. Now he's projected to go late first. They said none of the 4 QBs are in our reach either. Yeah, I mean, then he said tables have shifted a bit now.
Possibly,
yeah. I mean, it's very interesting. So many feelings will change and shift from now until the end of the draft. I mean, go back to Baker Mayfield. Like, Baker wasn't even expected to be the number one until a couple of days. Reports started coming out. Oh, Baker's going to be number one. For a while, everyone thought it was going to be Sam Darnold.
Yeah, because he's too small, cocky,
teams,
whatever.
Different teams have different preferences. I still remember it's like one of my first times doing the Pewter Report draft show, and the Raiders drafted a defensive tackle where everyone was like, what?
Yeah,
like, why?
Cleveland Farrell, 4th overall. Yeah.
And everyone was
the
like,
Buccaneers were crossing their fingers because the other guy the Raiders really wanted was Devin White, and the Bucs were praying and hoping Devin White would fall to them at 5. And they took Cleveland Farrell at 4. Tampa Bay's like, what? Thank you. Okay.
Yeah, so that stuff happens. That stuff happens all the time.
Yep.
But yeah, that's how we feel about it. Let's get to the Bucs' next pick, which is not in the 4th round. It is in the 5th round.
Yep. Trey Palmer,
Nebraska wide receiver Trey Palmer.
Yep.
He's junior, was 6 foot, 192 pounds. He has blazing speed with a 4.33 40-yard dash. A big thing about him is he began his career at LSU and didn't get a lot of playing time because he was behind a star-studded wide receiver room with Jamar Chase and his name's blanking me, but the star
Justin
wide
Jefferson.
receiver. Yeah, Justin Jefferson.
Yeah.
I don't know why I was blanking me, but yeah, the Vikings star wide receiver.
Butte now, was
Yes.
was kind of their guy.
Then
So
he
yeah,
transferred over to Nebraska, which is Jason Light country. Obviously, Jason Light has close ties to the University of Nebraska and really made the most of his career with 71 catches for 1,043 yards and 9 touchdowns. So you talk about the speed, you talk about the production in really his first year to be like a full-time starter, and it checks a lot of boxes for what Tampa Bay wants. And in the 5th round, when they talked about getting faster, I think that's probably a good opportunity, a good time to start picking a wide receiver when it's not like one of the first needs off of the board for the Bucs.
For sure. And I think that Trey Palmer, kind of a one-year wonder, statistically speaking, so that's going to hurt him a little bit in terms of his draft status. Also, too, is not a great year for wide receivers. And at the same time, we've seen a lot of really good receiver drafts over the years, right? So it's I don't say that every team stocked a wide receiver, but even Tampa Bay now, right? You've got Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, Russell Gage. So if Palmer comes in, right, he's battling Devin Tompkins to be wide receiver number 4. And there's just been so many good wide receiver draft classes because of the passing game in college football that it really has kind of flooded that position a little bit. So I don't think teams are going to reach for a guy like Palmer. I think he's got a chance to be there at 5, even though the speed's there. But yeah, this team has said they want to get faster, and Palmer certainly, checks the boxes there. And then when you look at the next pick, which we're now into the Bucs' 5th round pick for their compensatory pick. And we've got them going offense again. And this is Josh Wiley, really good Wiley tight end from Cincinnati. Yeah. And I believe he scored 19 touchdowns, catching passes from Desmond Ridder collectively in his years at Cincinnati. Very tall, 6'6", 248-pound guy, probably a good effort in the run game in terms of a blocker. Probably needs to add about 5 to 7 pounds, get a little bit bigger. But Dave Canales used a lot of 2 and 3 tight end sets. I know the Bucs just drafted 2 in K-Dot and O'Keefe, but they no longer have Cam Brate, nor do they have Rob Gronkowski. They don't even have who?
I was going to say Kyle Rudolph, but if we want to
Kyle Rudolph
to Anthony Auclair as well, if we want to go.
Yeah, so I could
Tanner
see
Hudson,
them.
Shout out. We're just talking about all old school. Not crazy old school, but tight ends of recent years.
Of yesteryear,
Yeah, with Wiley, I mean, you want to talk about consistency. 28 catches, 353 yards, 6 touchdowns in 2020. 36 catches, 332 yards, and 6 touchdowns in 2021, and 32 catches, 326 yards, 3 touchdowns last season in 2022. So the receiving yards were around the same ballpark, like every single time. Same thing with the catches. Listen, if the Bucs want to go with a tight end, like in the 1st round, with the tight end out of
Dalton Kincaid,
Dalton Kincaid as well. Like that's fine. But I also don't think that Tampa Bay necessarily has to go with a stud number 1. I think 2 solid tight ends, and they already have a solid one with K-Dot. I think 2 solid tight ends should really get the job done, especially with everyone else that they have in the offense. And O'Keefe, I don't really look at him as he's a blocking tight end. He's shout out Rob Gronkowski with that quote. And he's like a fullback. I don't really look at him as a tight end. He has a passing touchdown, but that was a goal line situation. So Bucs really looking for tight end 2, maybe even tight end 1. Again, they perform crazy in training camp. They can end up being tight end 1. But 2 solid tight ends, I think, is the way to go for Tampa Bay.
Folks, if you're looking for a solid place to maybe put some wagers down, because it is March Madness, we're down to the Final 4.
Yeah.
Well, listen, the place to go is MyBookie. I've been using MyBookie now for 5 years. This is the place to go. It's the official online gambling spot for Pewter Report. March Madness is well underway. It's time for you to shoot your shot and score big on the nonstop action with MyBookie. Whether you're filling out multiple brackets, betting on the eventual national championship winner or the Final 4 games, or looking for some player and game props, MyBookie has you covered. Getting started with MyBookie is simple. Visit the website online, make your first deposit, use the promo code Pewter to claim an exclusive deposit bonus. That's promo code Pewter to claim some extra money on top of your initial deposit. with hundreds of thousands of prizes for March Madness, the weekly blackjack tournaments, the UFC fights, getting set with baseball now. You've got the NBA and NHL still going on. You can turn your game day into payday with MyBookie. Bet anything, anytime, anywhere with MyBookie. We're just going to finish up by rattling off a couple of these other names here, because now we're into the 6th round of the mock draft, and the Buccaneers have a couple picks. Oregon center guard Alex Forsythe, 6'4", 303 pounds, kind of a tough guy center. And why would they want to draft another center? Well, he can play guard. Keep in mind, Ryan Jensen, getting up there in age, had a season-long injury last year, and Robert Hainsey might end up winning a guard spot, right? And I know they have Nick Leverett on the roster as well, but Ryan Jensen's not going to play forever. You want to keep replenishing your offensive line, because they suffered some serious injuries there last year, even losing their tackles for a time. Tristan Wirfs missed some games with that Cleveland injury. Yeah, Donovan Smith missing some games
early.
Yeah, with that Cowboys game. Can never have enough good offensive linemen. They draft a tackle in the 1st round with Darnell Wright, come back and get an interior lineman with Alex Forsythe in the 6th round. Then we also have, this was a guy that Josh Queipo really likes, Maryland kicker Chad Ryland. I know they just signed Chase McLaughlin. That's not going to prevent them from drafting a kicker. I know you all are turning off the podcast right now. You don't want to hear it. But Jason Light has drafted 3 specialists, Matt, 2 kickers. Roberto Aguayo, the most wretched pick in Tampa Bay history. Matt Gay, a kicker who's
Super Bowl champion.
Yeah, became a Pro Bowler for the Rams, and Jake Carmada, who is the Bucs punter, and a really damn good one. So don't rule out on late day 3 another kicker. Maryland's kicker Chad Ryland is Josh's pick, and he is kind of our kicking, punting guru in addition to being salary cap guru. Louisiana Tech cornerback Miles Brooks, 6'1", 201, is the last pick in the 6th round. I don't personally like him, but I've heard the Buccaneers do, and so that's why he's in the mock. The mock draft, folks, is not necessarily about who we want the Buccaneers to pick. It's who we think they're going to pick. That's our job. That's what the mock is for. We do like some of these players. Darnell Wright, the first 3 guys especially, Derek Hall, Sidney Brown. We like those picks a lot.
Big fans.
But
big fans.
Sometimes the team picks players we don't like. See, Carnell Cadillac Williams, wasn't a big fan. And Michael Clayton, too, out of LSU, was not a big fan of that draft pick back in 2004. The last pick is Pittsburgh safety Brandon Hill, who was the fastest safety at the combine. Matt ran, I want to say, the low 4.4s. 5'10", 193 fits that size, mold. Why would they draft another safety after drafting a guy in Sidney Brown? Well, Sidney Brown could play the slot, too. That could be a possibility there. He could be that slot safety / nickel corner like Winfield played last year. And keep in mind, there's only 2 safeties on the roster. If you draft Sidney Brown, now you got 3. You're going to have at least 4, maybe 5 for the season. Brandon Hall, 7th rounder, can play some special teams. He had, 3 forced fumbles and 3 interceptions in his career, including 2 touchdowns on the defensive side. So the Buccaneers doubling up at the safety position and also grabbing a corner. That's 3 defensive backs. They need it with some of the attrition they've had in free agency.
Yeah, it makes total sense. I mean, we've seen the Bucs flood the position before in the secondary, mostly with cornerback, but absolutely with safety as well. But yeah, I actually wanted to bring this point up, but really just an observation. I'm not complaining about it, but no running backs in this draft.
No running backs,
and the process behind that.
Right, we've got Hunter Lepke for North Dakota State. Yeah, we put him in the last mock draft. I call him the L train. He reminds me of the A train, Mike Allstott, a little bit. So here's the thing. This is a deep running back draft, very deep. Running back is the most devalued position in the entire NFL right now. And so there's gonna be a couple decent guys, maybe Mohamed Ibrahim from Minnesota, maybe Lou Nichols from Central Michigan. There's going to be a guy or 2 that they really like as undrafted free agent that they can sign. Right now, remember, Rachaad White, Keyshawn Vaughn, Chase Edmonds, they've got 3. All they need is 1 more. Yeah. And if you go back and look at Dave Canales, Chris Carson was a 7th round pick for the Seahawks. Thomas Rawls was an undrafted free agent for Seattle. They've had some success with those late round guys. Not about speed, It's about toughness, tackle breaking, angry runners. That's what they're looking for.
This comment distracted me, but I loved it. Shout out Richie P says, good show, guys. Damn, the show was too quick. Time flew. Wait a doggone minute. Yep. Was this the best PR show ever? I think it was.
I think it was.
I think we did it. Congratulations, everybody. You are.
Thank you all for being a part of history today. That's awesome. That's good stuff. Let's end this with the right way before time flies and we all get too old. Well, there's something you can do about it. If you feel like time is passing you by and you're slowing down, getting sluggish, go to Age Rejuvenation.
As we age, our hormones decrease, both for men and women.
I was tired all the time, had no sex drive.
I was groggy.
I felt like I was 80 years old because everything hurt.
I came to Age Rejuvenation because I was tired all the time.
Bioidentical hormones has really made such an impact in people's lives.
I actually enjoy shopping now.
Got all my energy back.
Mind is sharp.
I feel like I'm 18 again.
It was perfect for me.
Get with Age Rejuvenation. Do it now. Don't wait.
Call Age Rejuvenation today.
Do it now. Get to Age Rejuvenation. AgeRejuvenation.com. I don't know why I'm doing Arnold on this ad read, but I'm going to.
That's great.
That's okay. I'm working on it. But at least I nailed the transition today. At least I nailed the segue, so I didn't screw up the best show we've ever done. Matt, you can take a little props for that. Look at John Gilmore, man. That guy, he's ripped and jacked. And part of it is, he was a former NFL player, but he didn't let himself go. As a matter of fact, when he felt like he was slipping a little bit, he went to Age Rejuvenation. He's only 43 years old. Looks like he could still play. I never played in the NFL. Played in high school. Don't feel like I could play anymore, but I could probably coach a little bit still. Why? Age Rejuvenation makes you feel younger. Testosterone therapy, gentlemen, that's what it's all about. If your testosterone levels have dropped and slipped, and maybe they have, if you're in your 40s, 50s, 60s, or 70s, go to Age Rejuvenation, sign up for that free, no risk, no obligation consultation. Takes just a minute or two. They'll run your blood work. Insurance will pay for it. If you have low testosterone, get the testosterone therapy. It works. $500 off your first initial dosage, and mention Pewter Report for that. And they got 5 Tampa Bay area locations to serve you. It didn't get any better than that, folks. Right there, AgeRejuvenation.com.
And after you're done with Age Rejuvenation, giving them a call, check out all of our coverage on our social media and, of course, PewterReport.com. You can follow us on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at Pewter Report. And then, of course, our YouTube channel, which you're on now, is at Pewter Report TV. We got podcasts 4 times a week, various clips from the shows, various clips from all different events that we're at, whether it's practice, the combine, OTAs, training camp, a ton of great stuff. So please do us a favor, hit that like button and subscribe to Pewter Report TV. We would greatly appreciate it. And we appreciate and love all the Pewter people that watch today's show. That's going to do it for us this afternoon. For Scott Reynolds, I'm Matt Matera saying thank you, everybody, for watching. And we'll see you tomorrow night for another edition of the Pewter Report podcast. Peace out. Peace out.
I can't. Peace out. Get out of here. Come on. Do it now.